yeah, it's cool that we have ETFs now and that the finance bros are getting into it. But we can't let the noise distract us from the core vision of building, sound money, which it is. I think the way that I view it is Satoshi gave us sort of like the last sliver of hope in this, you know, kind of era that we're in where we're fighting good versus evil type. And if we don't fight for the good, which is like Bitcoin, which is the only way that I see, our future be decentralized and not be controlled by all, the deep state and everything that's happening behind the scenes, then if Bitcoin doesn't sort of like save us, then what is?
Isabella, how you feeling? I know you got in just last night, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good to be back in El Salvador. Third time this year. I think this one was I felt like coming home, like I got through the airport. There's the bit drivers already there. Everything seems familiar.
Did you pass the big display they had in the airport?
Did I not pass it? I went out of my way to find it. Let me tell you the story.
I haven't got to see it, but it looks amazing.
You can't see it unless you're coming in through gate 16 and 17.
Okay.
And I didn't know that. So I got in through gate 6. And Stacy was like, yeah, we're doing this. It's between gate 16 and 17. But in the arrival gate. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, I have to see this for myself. So I'm going from gate 6, going to like find this huge replica, because the thing is, Bitcoin Histórico made this replica of the Bitcoin zone from the National Library in the airport to welcome, the Bitcoiners that are coming in. So I'm like, where is it? Where is it? I'm showing everybody the pictures. Thank God they made a tweet about it, because I'm like, we need to find this. And they're like, honey, you can't go there. It's through the arrivals gate and you have to go through security. You can't, like, once you're out, you can't go back. And I'm telling them, no, like, I have to go there. I have to see it. And I'm like sneaking my way in, trying to go back. I passed through one security checkpoint and the security guide is like, if you want the Bitcoin ATM, it's right there. And I'm like, no, I want the Bitcoin replica of like the Bitcoin zone. And he's like, I haven't even seen it, but you can go and try. So they let me in the first checkpoint. And then they're like, no, now you have to go upstairs. I go upstairs where all the arrivals are coming in, the international arrivals, and I see this huge security line, but it was empty. And I'm like, I have to figure out how to get in there. So I take all my stuff, leave my luggage there, and I run to them. And I'm like, guys, please help me go inside. I just want to take a picture of this huge Bitcoin sign that says, welcome to the Bitcoin country. And the security guard is like, no, ma'am, you can't. And I'm like, please. And he's like, fine, okay, go, do it quickly. And then you just have to pass back through security. So they guide me through like this full-on security guide where a person takes me there. And I see the sign, like the huge Bitcoin logo, welcome to Bitcoin country. And they had this huge flat screen where you can literally buy flights, book hotels, everything through Bitcoin.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
So I'm like, I made it.
All right. Well, so where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah.
So tell us what is going on in Isla Mujeres and the project that you have there. I know that you launched a cafe, which I love that you're denominating the prices in sats. That is amazing. But also, I know you've done a bunch of different events. So tell us first, give us an update on the cafe and how that's going.
So an update on the cafe and Bitcoin BTC Isla. Last time we spoke, we had all these crazy ideas, and it was just that, ideas. And one of the things about the Bitcoin community is when you have an idea and you put it out there, they sort of make you accountable for it. And I think you played a huge role in it. I remember. So what happened after I came to Bitcoin Beach in January, I was so inspired by everything you guys have there. You know, the huge Bitcoin logos, the signage. It, like you walk in and even a trash can has the Bitcoin logo. And I'm like, oh my goodness, this is like Bitcoiner paradise. And when I saw that, I'm like, no, like we got to think bigger, you know, we got to make it feel like home, because I feel like that's one of the things that happens with Bitcoin. When everything is sort of like Bitcoinized, you feel at home, even though it's a brand new place. And I go back and I start talking to ChatGPT, and I'm like, build me a Bitcoin cafe, you know, like an image, and put it in front of the ocean and all this. And it generated me a super realistic image of something that I can actually do. And I put it on Twitter and I'm like, this is my next goal. I always put it on Twitter because it makes me accountable for it. If not, it just stays in an idea, and everybody has ideas, but people just don't execute them. And so anyway, I put the tweet out there and you're like, yo, how can we make this happen? And I'm like, Mike, I can make it happen. Please, just give me faith. And you're like, all you need is like signage and everything. And I had to build up like the wall of the Bitcoin cafe because we had the place already semi-built, but it was sort of like an empty rooftop in a way. And I had to gather like the paint, build the wall, secure it so we can actually make a Bitcoin cafe.
Get the restaurant equipment.
Get the restaurant equipment, the fridge, the oven, you know, like start doing, get the freaking cups, the espresso machines, all this stuff that I didn't think through when I put that image. So anyways, to make the story, like the long story short, the whole Bitcoin community sort of made this vision a reality because, you're familiar with Geyser Fund.
Yeah.
Geyser Fund has honestly helped so much with all of the projects because you put the idea out there and it just, people help make it happen. And that's when I started I got one of the first donations and I started buying everything, you know, and I'm like buying the wood, hiring, you know,
I saw the pictures on Twitter of them bringing in the supplies and, you know, by hand, like hauling it in and
everything. It's hard because we're on an island, so we have to transfer everything from mainland. And once that started happening, it so happened that it was a reality to open it by August 21st.
I know, you made that happen quickly. I was impressed.
I work fast.
Yeah.
I'm like, once I have the tools to do it, I'm like, there's no barrier between me and making it happen. And it so happened that we were also building the Bitcoin gym. So it's the first gym on the island that accepts Bitcoin, I think, and the first gym in all of Mexico that accepts Bitcoin and is actually now running its own node. And both of the projects were happening simultaneously. So the whole opening week was nuts. And we built the Bitcoin cafe, we made that happen. We're opening the Bitcoin gym, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm building all these new businesses because why? What I realized what was happening on the island was I would orange pill the businesses and it would just stay there. They were already onboarded, but most of them weren't like following on, because if you don't go back to your merchants and you use the Bitcoin regularly there, some of them just forget.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I need to preach what I'm sowing. Like I'm going out to them. And that's when I decided to sort of start building my own businesses so they can be like, okay, if I'm doing it, then I'm not being a hypocrite by telling you accept a Bitcoin if I'm not doing it. And that's when I started shifting to like building the Bitcoin gym and the Bitcoin cafe. And when I'm there opening it, for the grand opening, I decide to survive on the island for 21 days
Oh, I saw
using
that.
Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But not just me going out there and spending it. I had to earn Bitcoin and through jobs. It was like any job possible that I could get my hands on and that would pay me in Bitcoin. I was there. I was game. I ended up, like making tacos, selling churros, cleaning toilets, all for sats. And that's one of the things that most people don't talk about, getting paid in Bitcoin, and doing jobs in Bitcoin. Because in order to build this Bitcoin circular economy, you need both.
Yeah.
Because how are you supposed to spend your sats and look at the world through, everything being denominated in Bitcoin if you are not making Bitcoin, and it's probably one of the most underrated aspects of stacking Bitcoin, earning it.
Well, I love that it wasn't just online things. You were doing like physical jobs there in the community.
It
So,
was crazy. I still have PTSD. I don't recommend it. Well, because I had a time crunch. So I had 21 days to survive on Bitcoin plus the opening of the Bitcoin Cafe and building it at the same time. So it was kind of chaotic, but we managed. It pulled through. And now the Bitcoin Cafe is out there for, Bitcoiners that come to the island. The idea started because in Bitcoin conferences, you start talking to, you have these interactions with Bitcoiners. And that's what sparks all the ideas and everything. It all starts through a conversation. And that's when I was like, no. Like, this is what needs to happen in BTC Isla. That was also one of my goals of 2025, to have a place, a hub for Bitcoiners to come and just chill. Because we had Mayaquita, the restaurant, underneath, and it's a restaurant. You can't be there and chill for the rest of the day because you're keeping, like, it's a business,
yeah.
and it's not my business, so I can't be like, hey, everybody come chill here for free. But with the Bitcoin Cafe, it kind of offered that for Bitcoiners.
No, I think it's important to have that physical space in a
Yeah.
community. And that's one of the reasons we opened the Bitcoin Beach House in El Zonte. Was you need a physical space to be able to meet and to have that real life community aspect. I know you had announced originally that you were going to denominate the prices in sats. Have you been able to stay with that? And be curious to hear what your experience has been with that.
Honestly, if it was up to me, I started it out like that. But I'm not going to lie to you. All these Bitcoiners are fake because they're like, yeah, have it priced in sats. But when it comes to the time when they're about to pay, they're like, what is it in dollars or what is it in pesos? So we all have to come to an agreement and be like, if we want it to be priced in sats, be down for it to
be priced in sats.
Be priced in sats. And don't tell me, because I can't be converting every day in pesos and dollars. So what I ended up doing was eliminating all the price.
Okay.
So Uncle Rockstar from BTC Pay Server actually helped me link my Blink account from the Bitcoin Cafe to the POS services, the Bitcoinized machines. So honestly, it's been the easiest thing, and it kind of gives the customer, the Bitcoiner that comes to spend their sats, something like, oh, Bitcoin is being used as money, because it's a Bitcoin machine that prints out your receipts, and it's everything priced in Bitcoin.
So you've been able to keep it priced in sats for them.
I'm not going to lie to you. In the app, in Blink, I priced it in pesos. But when you get it, you get the receipt, how much you spend in Bitcoin, in sats, because it's been hard to do. That's
one of the things we want to move to, denominating everything. And I think that's super important for us actually using Bitcoin and money, is to denominate in sats. But you do get pushback, and you get it from Bitcoiners. And that's what's so frustrating.
That's what I don't get, because it's like, it's a great idea, but we all have to come together and be like, okay, it's going to be priced in sats. And obviously it's inevitable. The price is going to go up and down. the peso goes up and down all the time. But I don't know, it blows my mind how Bitcoiners are not accepted to it yet, because I don't know what we would have to do. My thing would be, okay, you price it in Bitcoin. The other option would be to have the price change or updated every 3 months, I guess, or to just leave it in sats.
Yeah.
Like, what's the big deal?
Well, you should at least shame them and say that if you're still a fiat coiner, we will give you the price in fiat. But if you're a Bitcoiner, we'll give it to you in sats.
Seriously. No, but it should be a community effort.
Yeah.
That's one of the things. I love the Bitcoin community, but most of them, come on, they don't even spend their sats. You've probably seen it a lot in Bitcoin Beat.
No, we see Bitcoiners come to the Alzante and then they want to pay in dollars. You're like, what in the world? Like, they're like, well, I'm saving I'm like, well, why do you have dollars? You can always, it blows my mind, but yeah.
No, that gets me riled up.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, if you want to see it as a medium of exchange, you have to spend it. And then there's some Bitcoiners that look at it and they're like, oh, well, don't you think Laszlo should have never spent those 10,000 Bitcoin for that pizza? And then you're like, if he didn't do that, then we would not
be where we're at.
At all. So it comes, I think it's up to the Bitcoiners either to push this adoption. And I've seen a lot of Bitcoiners actually like even fight back. Like Hernan from Cape Town, he has a Bitcoin circular economy too. And I've seen him talk to other Bitcoiners. And he's like, yo, it's Bitcoin. It's money. You have to use it as money. If not, then what are we doing? You know?
If not, then your goal is having more fiat, not living on a Bitcoin standard.
I don't know what needs to happen in the Bitcoin space to give people this push to just not be scared to spend Bitcoin, because many people are like, oh, the price is going to go up. Why are you going to spend it now? But then it's like, why don't you just divide it?
Why are you holding on fiat now?
Why are you holding on to fiat? Or have like a spending stash and a saving stash. You know, you don't have to spend all your Bitcoin, but you can get more or do services or work to get more Bitcoin. Like,
well, that's what I always tell people. If you're living on a Bitcoin standard, you'll actually wind up with more Bitcoin because you'll question your purchases and you'll be more specific on how you want to spend your money rather than just wasting it. So if you continue to live on a fiat standard, you're going to continue to spend like a fiat person.
It does make you it filters your purchasing needs.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
And that simplifies your life because most of the stuff we wind up buying, we don't need anyways. You're looking, your water's right there.
Oh, yeah, I'm like, no.
So tell us about this fitness event that you did. You know, obviously there's a big connection between the Bitcoin world and taking care of your body. And if you have low time preference, that's not just with your money, but it's also with your health. So tell us about the idea for this event. And I think it happened a few weeks ago, or
early October.
Early October. Okay. Yeah. So how did it go?
So I've always been into fitness ever since I was little. And once you go down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, you realize that there's all these other rabbit holes that go with it. You know, the fiat food, the wellness, you know, how your body is literally your temple. And I'm very an open book, so I post everything I do. And Frida from Bitcoin Sports Network, they organize the golf tournaments. And she reached out to me and she was like, yo, I love what you're doing on the island. I love how you are super into fitness as well, because she's a CrossFitter. And she was like, I have this idea to do like Bitcoin Fit Games. And obviously the way that the Bitcoin Sports Network wants to do it is they want to, you know, host these insane competitions, which is going to be amazing to see it unfold. And she was like, I want to try it out doing it on your island. And we started talking about everything that we can do. And it lined up that we just opened the gym and we opened the cafe and everything. And the more that we started talking, we realized that yes, we're going to do a fitness game, but we're going to do a giving back aspects game as well to the Bitcoin community. And what do I mean by that? So we have all these merchants in BTC Isla. Now we've managed to get over 30. And we want, like, especially me and Claudio, who do BTC Isla, we wanted to give back to the merchants that have trusted us from day one. And what do I mean by trusted us? They believed in us when we came to them and we're like, hey, can you just accept Bitcoin? It's going to bring in more customers. It's just like another form of payment, and they took a leap of faith on trusting these two random strangers that, told them to accept Bitcoin. And they had been accepting Bitcoin for almost a full year. And we selected the ones that had done more for the Bitcoin community. And the idea was we would choose 4 merchants and we would have 4 different groups. And those groups of Bitcoiners would represent those merchants, and all the sats that they accumulated would be given back to them. And we chose Tacos Toro, which is a taco stand, Marquesita and churro stand. And we chose the taxi driver who started the initiative to organize a Bitcoin taxi group.
Okay.
So there's over 10 taxi drivers that accept Bitcoin. And we chose Samuel, a mango stand as well. And what ended up happening was super interesting because they saw, the merchants, how the Bitcoin community worked. It was the first time we had, Bitcoiners come to the island and go to their shops. But this was the first event we had on the island that showed them how powerful the Bitcoin community is and how willing to help all of them. Because I think that's one of the core things about Bitcoiners is it takes us back to like back in the day when you would help your neighbor. It didn't have to be in it for yourself, and you would just help your neighbor. And one of the merchants, Heidi, who has a churro stand, she had like something happened during that time that her sister ended up being like she didn't have any money to eat. And she was reaching out to Heidi and saying like, hey, sister, like, can you please give me money because I really don't know what to feed my kids? And Heidi didn't tell me any of this until after. Heidi is the one that of the winner sort of like of the whole event because her winning team ended up getting the most sats. So Heidi's like, yeah, like honestly, what happened was Heidi's sister, her husband, had gotten into a car accident and he crashed into a mafia car. And obviously, like, what are the odds that would happen? He didn't have the money to pay for the accident. So they just took him. They took him and he was the sole provider of the family. So she had nothing to literally feed her kids. And Heidi was like, I don't even have that much money to give her. And she kept praying and praying and praying. And the white team that won was actually losing so bad. They were like the only team that was losing in the whole competition. Mind you, the Bitcoin Fit Games was 3 aspects of it. It was like the fitness component, the survival of the fittest, then the amazing grace part where you had to go through the island and do a scavenger hunt, and the trivia part as well, like Jeopardy. And then the amazing grace part where they were racing around the whole island, the white team's car broke down. And they broke down in front of a merchant. And one of the tasks was to orange pill a merchant, and they would get like, I think it was like 20K sats if whoever orange pilled the merchant. So their car breaks down, they end up orange pilling the merchant. And because of that, they end up winning the whole competition. And Heidi was watching everything that was going down. And literally that little moment kind of changed her life by, like just I don't know, it was just this magical moment. And having this experience of them, seeing how generous the Bitcoin community is, kind of just made them more bullish on Bitcoin.
No, you love to see like an event like that. Obviously the purpose isn't just the games themselves, but the camaraderie, the way it brings people together, the life-changing things like that can happen out of that. So
Yeah,
I love that you guys were able to pull that off. And we were talking before we started recording, you guys have in mind to do, I think, similar type events going forward.
Yes, we want to focus a lot on health and wellness. Give a purpose for Bitcoiners to come as well on the island and kind of be part of building the Bitcoin circular economy. I've always said this, I can't do this by myself. And I've noticed that many of the Bitcoiners that come, they want to be part of it. And having events gives them a purpose to sort of deviate from their life to come to the island and, help out and see it,
They want an excuse to come because it feels weird just showing up. But if there's an event or something, then it's like, okay, there's a reason to like
exactly.
to be there.
So we're also building like a recovery center. So we have like cold plunge, sauna. We've already have the gym. We're doing yoga, Pilates, workout classes. So it's like a Bitcoin hub. And the idea is to have, retreats where Bitcoiners would come and be with each other and also plant their little seed. There's this Bitcoiner called Bitcoin Larry. He's an amazing person. And he started coming this year. And I think the first time he came was in March, April. And he has seen the evolution of BTC Isla. Like he first came in, he came with his wife. And, we had at that time, I would say like 10 merchants accepting Bitcoin. We were doing the classes. And
I remember when you started, you had like 3 people show up for the class. And it was like, you could tell it just felt like, oh, is this going to work? But you like stuck with it and you kept pushing forward.
We were talking about that earlier before we started the interview. Like it's that, like, it's not winning the battles, it's winning the war. So once I started shifting from, it's okay, like, if you take an L when no one shows up to your classes, it's okay. Like when 2 or 3 people show up, you can't blame them, but you have to be able to shift and change, your tactic or the way that you're doing this. I've seen a lot of people have reached out to build their own Bitcoin circular economies and start it. And how do they do it? And that's the thing. You just have to start, and it's trial and error. Maybe what worked in Bitcoin Beach is not going to work in BTC Isla. What worked in BTC Isla is not going to work what's happening in Prospera, in Roatan. But that's the thing. You have to get out there and try and fail. You're going to fail so much. And just once you get turned down, it doesn't matter. You just have to keep going and keep doing it and not be afraid to pivot. What I was realizing was in the classes, my thing was, I have to start with the education first. So that's how I was starting. And then I realized, no, I'm not even Mexican. So I'm like, I need to earn their trust. I'm coming into this community that is very community oriented, trust based, and I'm expecting them to give me their trust because I believe I'm a good person, but they don't know that. So you have to do proof of work. And I started out with like, hey, come to the classes, they're free. But I hadn't earned their trust yet. So with the gym and the Bitcoin Cafe, it's helped me to meet all the locals, and I'm slowly, gradually building their trust. And recently, like before coming here, one of the people that come to the gym, her name is Cons, she ended up opening a cafe. And because we knew her, we were like, hey, like, are you down to accept Bitcoin? We can teach you about it. And, there's a lot of Bitcoiners that come to the island and they want to support businesses that accept Bitcoin. And because she had already been with us, she knew us already, she was like, okay, like, let's have a coffee. You can explain to me. It sounds complicated, but I'm down. Yeah. And ever since we've put ourselves out there and shifted our whole mechanism on like how to orange pill the businesses and how to onboard them, we've seen more of an acceptance rate. Now we have over 30 merchants on the island that accept Bitcoin, which is more than 10% since there's 250 merchants.
That's amazing. That really is spectacular.
It's wild to see, because if you would have told me a year ago that we would have had 30, I'm like, how? I would start knocking on the doors and being like, hey, would you accept Bitcoin? And they'd be like, no. But it's, once you know the owner, you don't have to go out there and sweat and hand out flyers.
No, I love to see the progress you guys have been making, and like you were saying, lots of people have ideas, but you've taken, and I want to give you credit for the work that's gone into it. And I know you have other people helping, but you've been the one spearheading it, because people come all the time with ideas, but to have somebody actually follow through and make it happen, we've seen that with the cafe, with the gym, with all the events that you're doing. So congratulations on the impact that you're having there. I know that's kind of just your part-time thing, though. You also have a job and a business that that puts food on the table for you, that is your support. And I know you guys have been making huge strides with your media channels and the projects that you're working on. So you were relaying to me that you guys started a new channel recently. Yes. So share with the audience a little bit about that, where they can find you guys, and kind of what the focus of that is.
So about 2 years ago, we started Get Based, a production company to educate.
Which I love that name.
Get Based.
Yeah.
It was more of an action, like, you got to get based. And it was founded by Adam O'Brien and Julian Figueroa and myself. And it started with the Peruvian doc, with the Bitcoin circular economies over in Peru with Motive.
With Motive,
which I love what they're doing out there. It's insane. You guys have to check them out. And it was this idea where we want to create content, because that's the best way to reach people and reach new generations through video. 2% of the whole world watches YouTube, which is insane. So our thing was like, how do we educate the masses in like this sort of entertaining way? Because the Bitcoin content is very dense. And if you're not in the rabbit hole and someone has pushed you down there, how are you going to get in there?
Yeah.
So we started out with BTC Isla, the show. We just celebrated our 1-year anniversary of the show, which started out me documenting everything that I was doing on the island. And we ended up perfecting the way that we would create the storytelling to reach brand new audiences, and not just Bitcoiners, but normies. It's funny how they call normies the people that have not been orange pilled yet. And we just launched the Exit Manual. That's a show with Julian. He's the main host. And the editing style is now reaching the new generation, like 14-year-olds. When you go back to the comments, you see 14-year-olds saying like, oh my gosh, I've been into finance, but I haven't found a channel that resonates and speaks it in such a plain and simple language. Which is that, like, there's some barriers that keeps, the new generation from entering, because once you're in the rabbit hole so deep, you start hearing like orange pill, or you start hearing like hodl, all these new terminologies that we've created. So it's been insane to see, because probably I think right now we already have 18,000 subscribers in YouTube, and we launched in September. So it's like 2 months.
You're gonna have to give me some tips and hints.
I got you.
I think we're only at like 8,000 or 9,000 for the podcast. So we and that's after a few years. So we need your help there.
Title and thumbnail. We cracked the code of YouTube, and it's a lot of research, and like I was saying, pivot when something doesn't work. Pivoting. That's one of the things that I realized. A lot of people they're like stuck in comfortable in their ways, but you have to realize people consume content for them, not for you. So once we switched it, we're like, how can we feed information to the viewer that will benefit them? But YouTube is a freaking beast. I'm not the YouTube expert. We got Ben, Cote, and Julian are the true masterminds. I'm just preaching what goes over into our on our weekly calls. I'm like the dinosaur with the YouTube. So yeah,
That's amazing. So that's been fun for you guys to have this whole new project.
it's been so much fun, and to see the feedback from, again, the community, just like having this community that just backs you up is game changer, because we all want to see and make the world a better place. And that's one of the things that blows my mind, is how everyone wants to see it better. And one of the things that I realized with Bitcoin is it's a network effect. It only works if we make it work. It depends on us if Bitcoin's going to be, sort of like the end game or the final money. If we don't put in the work or put in our part, then there is a possibility for it not to work. Like I was doing one of the stories in like Bitcoin mining. I didn't realize how centralized Bitcoin mining was, and nobody's talking about it. Only the Bitcoin miners know how centralized Bitcoin mining is. And in every aspect, in the chips, making the ASIC chips, they're all made in 2 companies in China, like by Bitmain and WhatsMiner. And you're like, how is no one talking about this? Mining is one of the core principles of why Bitcoin works. So I think it's cool that we have ETFs now and that the finance bros are getting into it. But we can't let the noise distract us from the core vision of building, sound money, which it is. I think the way that I view it is Satoshi gave us sort of like the last sliver of hope in this, kind of era that we're in, where we're fighting good versus evil type. And if we don't fight for the good, which is like Bitcoin, which is the only way that I see, our future be decentralized and not be controlled by all, the deep state and everything that's happening behind the scenes, then if Bitcoin doesn't sort of like save us, then what is, Well, obviously God and, but
Bitcoin's a tool.
It's a tool.
Yeah.
It's a tool.
I think that's always important, because I do see some Bitcoiners that they make it their God, and they make it like that is going to,
that's sort of like I look at it like that's our sword to fight back.
Yeah.
No,
it's an amazing tool to equalize the things so that the poor have the same access as the wealthy.
Yeah.
So no, I love that. Well, I won't keep you more, because I know you got to prepare your hosting the activities here today at this historic Bitcoin event here in El Salvador. So I love that they brought you in to lead the charge and get people going, and hopefully I know you got to go till, what'd you say, till 9?
Till 9 p.m. Yeah. So that's gonna be.
And you're working on only a couple hours sleep.
I woke up at 6 a.m., but it's going to be a long day.
Yeah. Well, you're young, so you'll be able to handle it. So.
I'm young, but I'm not that young.
So let people know how they can come visit and participate in the project there in Isla Mujeres. And then also about your channels, where they can follow you on Twitter, all that stuff.
All the fun stuff.
Give them the rundown.
Okay, so my thing would be, Roman says it perfectly. He's like, if you're a Bitcoiner, you should make it your mission to visit at least one Bitcoin circular economy in your life, because I feel like it's fun and Bitcoiners need to spend their Bitcoin. And I would suggest, if you can follow me at Isabella SG3 on Twitter or Instagram, whichever one you use, and follow BTC Isla on YouTube to see and support, Get Based, and the new show, Exit Manual.
Awesome. All right. Well, make sure that you check out. You guys have such great content that you keep
Thank
putting
you.
out. So
We try.
yeah, no, I love seeing it. It's always popping up, and you do a good job with the algorithm because it's always popping up in my feed. So, but yeah, make sure and check out Isabella's work, and we will, I'm sure, be back here with you in the next year sometime to get some more updates on what you guys are
I
doing.
hope so. I love coming back. So
All right. Thanks.
thank you.